rise together. We all rise together.
You hit me.
We all rise together.
You're a sneaky coward. Hit me from behind.
We all rise together. Being complicit in sexual violence.
What are you people standing up for? What are you standing up for?
What are you standing for?
Have a seat.
No, we won't.
And you need to leave.
I will not leave.
And the police are standing too. They would have to sit down first and foremost. They are the.
You will put me out, but I will not leave. The time for silence has ended. The time for polite politics has ended. The time for bullshit has ended.
James, this is how you want to.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
That's right.
You want to put a pig on our chain.
We have nothing to lose but our chains. 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 We have nothing to lose but our chains.
Clear the room.
We have nothing to
We will
lose
not
but our
continue.
chains.
Please clear the
We
room.
have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have multiple parties today. All
We have
departments
nothing to
today.
lose
In the room.
We have nothing to lose but our chains. We have nothing to lose but our chains. We have nothing to lose but our chains. We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
You get that charge. Hands up.
To lose but our chains.
Folks!
Hands up.
Folks! They're fixing to move us out of here. So, we should put our hands up, because if not, they're going to say we assault them.
No.
Self-defense and in defense of others. Hands up.
Complicity in sexual violence is what's happening.
So Beck is laughing.
All of us rise up against
He thinks that Beck thinks this is funny.
Beck, why are you smiling?
Why are you laughing?
He's a piece of junk.
We come here every Tuesday, and they do the same thing. They are in place to protect this institution.
They like to protect rapists. They like to protect rapists.
Fire chief back! Fire chief back!
They say we're the evil people.
Fire chief back.
Fire chief back! 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 Fire chief back!
I want my notebook back.
I should have had. Got video of him laughing. Smirking and laughing.
Opposition to the drone on that tablet. So I want my notebook back. No, I threw it at him.
Fire chief back!
Fine.
Fire chief back! Fire chief back!
Fire the commission. Fire.
You think I have no idea downtown?
Fire the commission!
On
Fire the commission! Fire the commission!
Come and do what?
Fire the commission! 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 Fire the commission!
Did he give us a 15-minute warning?
Fire the commission! 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 Fire the commission!
We make our voices known. If it were not for us, They would rubber stamp everything that these people want and move on. They would do it in 45 minutes and be gone.
Wicked.
So we are upholding the democratic process. We are the people of this city. It is incumbent upon us to be here, and it is equally as incumbent for us to challenge and confront them. They are here to protect at all costs that institution. We are here to protect at all costs the lives of ourselves and our families. And if given a choice, they will protect the institution. If given a choice, we have to protect ourselves. They have demonstrated that. They are not willing to. They are not even interested in raising the question. They are about to give almost $400,000 to a cadet program that failed. I mean, you heard, listen, Hamid spends time researching this. And you heard what they talked about, since what has happened since 1962. But yet they're willing to trust these people again?
While the community needs youth development, while
Yes.
the community needs youth jobs, while the community needs bus passes, they want to give it to a program that we already know is failing. Them themselves know, but guess what? They just walk past by us just like they did right now.
And what's worse, they're going to come back and approve drones to a police force that's the most murderous in the country, that will weaponize it within a few months. They will be spying on us, and they will approve it. They will support it, and they will protect it.
Too much money goes to the police, depriving needy communities, needing people of real human need. And the brutalization and militarization of LAPD, killing our community, black, brown, red, poor white, poor people. That's what this whole LAPD program is about. They get all kinds of city money that we deserve. We're the taxpayer. But how many times has killer, murdering police been fired or convicted? They're always set free. So they keep doing it over and over and over. And the rest of the police that don't do it, they keep their mouth shut. They're afraid of losing their job. This is all
we
a
do
crap.
not trust them with $380,000. We don't trust them with a drone. We don't trust them at all. Because nobody, 2 weeks ago, we were in this room, and they found in policy the killing of a 14-year-old. How do you do that?
Lift up their name.
Thank you for lifting up their name. How do you, well-intended, smart people, think, well, whatever that child did, he shouldn't have done it, and the police had to kill him? What society does that? What society kills its own children and then say the people who killed them are okay, they're in policy? What society does that?
This one right here.
A white supremacist society. Thank you.
I'm trying to look away from the truth.
Yeah. And so if they'll approve that and this $380,000 and these drones, they will kill us continually. That's why we have to be here. That's why we have to disrupt. And if they can never meet again, so what? So what?
Shut it down. Shut it down. Shut it down.
They're not doing anything for us in the first place. This police department is focused on two things: control and suppression. And if you put weapons in their hands, they will use it to control and suppress us.
1974, advisor to the program, the Explorer program, Officer David Kalish begins to abuse a 14-year-old Explorer boy. The abuse lasts until 1979, is not unveiled until 2003, along with evidence of other victims. Jamie, 1976.
A LEEG complains to, and LEG is the Law Enforcement Explorer Girls program, complains to LAPD supervisors that the camping trips were little more than orgies. An investigation finds that at least 6 cops had sex with at least 16 teenage explorers. Officer Michael Casados is suspended for 6 months when found guilty by police tribunal of engaging in sexual acts with a 17-year-old female scout.
Read the year as well.
1982, Sergeant Lee Schroyer is found guilty of raping a woman while on duty. Schroyer resigns from the LAPD to avoid an internal police board hearing. He is found guilty of rape and sent to jail for 18 months.
1985, a sergeant is investigated for raping a woman. His name is not disclosed, but he's removed from field duty following an allegation that he offered a woman a ride, then raped her in his patrol car.
1986, veteran officer and repeat offender Michael Casados, which I just mentioned, is arrested for sexually molesting a 15-year-old girl over a 5-year period. Casados resigns from the LAPD and, due to a plea deal, remains free without bail until his hearing in July and was guaranteed not to serve time.
1986, Officer Al Cunningham is arrested for suspicion of molesting 4 girls between the ages of 10 and 13 over a 4-year period. Charges include felony child molestation and rape.
1987, Officer Doyle John Craig is charged with 9 counts of molesting teenage boys, many of whom he met while on patrol. The charges are dismissed after the testimony of the victims was ruled inadmissible. 1989.
1989, Officer Stanley Tanabe demands to be let into the home of a 14-year-old girl, claiming that he heard a scream for help. After the girl's parents let him in, Tanabe goes to the girl's bedroom and molests her under the pretense of conducting a search. The family files a complaint, but Tanabe returns to the house 4 weeks later when the girl's parents are gone. Tanabe is taken into custody, placed on administrative leave, and later sentenced to 2 years in jail.
1992, Officer Garner Beasley is charged with raping 4 women while on patrol. Beasley also shoots a woman in the leg while she tries to flee from him during an off-duty encounter. While being investigated, Beasley is assigned to desk duty, then sent home with pay. Following his arrest, he is suspended without pay.
1992, in May, Officer Victor Felix Ramos goes to his wife's place of work to beat and threaten her with his gun. Due to Ramos's clean record, the LAPD does not make counseling mandatory, but asks that Ramos hand in his gun for 1 month. After a month, the gun is returned to Ramos and Ramos is put back on patrol with no psychological evaluation. On August 12th, Officer Ramos uses his department-issued gun to kill his wife, her lover, and himself, while his 3 children aged 3, 5, and 6 hid in the bedroom.
1994, Officer Marvin Jackson is arrested for sexually assaulting a 16-year-old Explorer youth. Jackson is knowingly HIV positive. Jackson pleads guilty and is sentenced to 15 months in jail.
52 months.
52 months in jail. He is fired from the LAPD.
1996, Sergeant David Lewis Navarro is placed on administrative hold in November for conducting searches of girls aged 16 to 18 and sexually groping them. 7 months later, he resigns. He spends 36 days in jail.
1997, criminal defense consultant Mike Mullally leaks information to a CBS reporter regarding confidential files into LAPD domestic violence. The files reveal that from 1990 to 1993, 79 officers were investigated for beating their intimate partners and family members. Out of 85 cases, 75 showed evidence of a crime. In one case, an officer struck his wife so hard her liver ruptured. In another case, an officer abused his wife and repeatedly raped her 14-year-old niece. Complaints include 61 felony assaults, 35 terrorist threats, 28 assaults with a deadly weapon, 20 gun brandishing incidents, 13 child abuse complaints, and 6 rapes. No officers were arrested or prosecuted, and while 4 officers were fired and 19 were suspended, almost 1/3 of officers were eventually promoted. Following the leak, the Feminist Majority Foundation and its National Center for Police and Women and Policing successfully pushed for an investigation of LAPD practices involving police officers guilty of domestic abuse. In the resulting report, Inspector General Catherine Mader examines 227 cases of domestic violence committed by officers from 1990 and 1997 and finds that many of the investigations lacked objectivity or were otherwise flawed and skewed. That's why we asked for an independent
investigation.
Go ahead, Jay. 1997.
Equals investigation.
So, continuing, in 1997, Officer John M. Rosales is accused of sexual misconduct with a 17-year-old Explorer youth, again, and inappropriately touching 2 others, aged 14 and 16. Rosales is placed on administrative leave with pay. In the resulting investigation, Police Chief Bernard C. Parks reveals that there are 95 allegations against 8 officers with 3 female victims. Rosales is implicated with committing statutory rape against 1 youth and sexually harassing 2 others. 7 of the officers failed to provide adequate supervision and committed unidentified administrative breaches.
In 1997, the 17-year-old former Explorer Scout abused by Rosales is awarded $1.4 million in a suit against the City of Los Angeles for failing to exercise proper supervision over Rosales and the Explorer Scout program. The LAPD notes that Rosales is no longer with the department.
Attention.
2002, in April, Officer John Evan Robinson is relieved of duty after raping 3 women within 6 weeks while on duty. Robinson's maintained his innocence.
You will not be allowed back in when we reconvene. Please clear the room.
Let's keep on reading it.
No.
That's not a dispersal order.
In 2002, in April, Officer Joseph Evans Robinson is relieved of duty after raping 3 women.
Attention, I'm Lieutenant Caldera, police officer for the city of Los Angeles.
That's a dispersal order.
An unlawful assembly. In the name of the people of the state of California, command all those assembled at one.
These are the people of California.
Police commissioner boardroom to immediately disperse. This means to break up the assembly. If you do not do so, you may be arrested. Police action or other police action may include the use of less lethal munitions, which could cause significant risk of serious injury to those who remain. Section 409 of the PC Code prohibits remaining present at unlawful assemblies.
So there has to be a riot. There's no riot.
If your purpose to remain, it would be in violation of Section 409. Following routes of dispersal are available through the rear door from the lobby to First Street. You have 15 minutes to disperse.
We got a whole 15 minutes. Y'all should keep reading. This is amazing. And the fact that you bring this up in public, the fact that we have to hear this through a third party is why we need an independent investigation. We got 15 minutes. We're up to 1997, aren't we?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Thank you to Tiffany's research. Go ahead, Tiffany.
2003, a lawsuit is brought by a former Explorer Scout charging the deputy chief, David Kalish, began sexually abusing him when he was 14 years old and continued for 4 years. A 5-month investigation of Kalish reveals similar accounts of sexual abuse from an additional 5 youth, all of whom were enrolled in the LAPD's Explorer program.
2005, Officer George Stan, an LAPD veteran who ran a San Fernando Valley Explorer program for a year, is arrested for multiple charges of sex acts and sending harmful material to an Explorer applicant. Stan's acquaintance with the applicant began when the boy was 12. The resulting investigation found that Stan molested 7 minors, 2 of whom were involved in the Explorer program. Stan retired from the LAPD following his arrest and was sentenced to 11 years, 4 months in jail. Speaking on behalf of the department, Lieutenant Paul Vernon noted that Stan's arrest would not alter LAPD's commitment to the Explorer program. These kinds of incidents can happen in any organization, in anything dedicated to children, youth sports, churches, synagogues. That's their argument.
2005, Officer Jeffrey Sandwell is arrested for the forcible rape of a 17-year-old girl in his neighborhood. Sandwell is part of the Neighborhood Watch program, whereby his home is proclaimed a safe haven. Sandwell is held for 5 days, and additional women came forward with claims of assault. Sandwell is released when the DA decides not to press charges.
2005, off-duty officer Ralph Cameron LACAN is arrested for covertly taking sexually suggestive pictures of girls as young as 4 years old as they walk around a local festival. 9 months later, LACAN retires from his job, where he was reviewing excessive force cases at the LAPD. He takes a plea deal, allowing him to avoid charges of a sex crime. He is sentenced to probation and community service.
2005, in July, Officer Hector Villalta is arrested for forcibly raping a woman in his home while he's off duty. It is not clear if Villalta was ever charged.
In 2008, a video of LAPD's Juvenile Impact Program is made public. The JIP is described as an intervention boot camp style program for at-risk youth. While originally for youth aged 12 to 17, over time the age limit dropped to 9 to 15-year-olds, so we can intervene at an early age. In the video, no longer available on YouTube, children as young as 9 are made to roll through the mud as an officer shouts at them and sprays them with a hose.
2008, in March, Officer Russell Meccano is arrested for solicitation of sex while on duty. The charges stemmed from Meccano's encounter the previous October with a houseless woman who was 18 or 19. 2 months later, an 18-year-old reports that Meccano sexually assaulted her while he was on duty. Meccano was sentenced in 2011 to 8.5 years in jail for sexual assault and solicitation of sex.
2008, in December, Officer Eduardo Bermudez is arrested for attempting rape following a sanctioned LAPD Pacific Area holiday party and an unofficial after party. Bermudez is reportedly off duty when he attempts to rape a fellow officer. He's placed on paid home leave during the investigation.
In 2009, in December, the LAPD cuts ties with the Explorer program. which is a Learning for Life subsidiary of the Boy Scouts of America. It transitions to a program run entirely by the LAPD, known today as the Cadet program. The reason given is that LAPD's disagreement with the Boy Scout policies, which are discriminatory with regards to sexual orientation and religion.
In 2010, LAPD officers Luis Valenzuela and James Nichols are accused of forcing a woman to engage in sex almost a year prior. The claim is dropped when, according to the warrant, the woman who made the statement cannot be located. The investigation would be picked up again in a year, but would go nowhere until 2013 when the victim filed a lawsuit.
2011, in November, Detective Oris Pace, a supervisor with the Los Angeles Police Commission Investigation Division, is investigated following complaints from local massage parlor workers. The investigation reveals that over the course of a year while on duty, Pace forced 3 women to undress so he could grope them. Pace pleads no contest and resigns from the LAPD. He's sentenced to 6 months in jail.
In 2012, a video of LAPD officer Ismael Gonzalez and Alex Nava running a boot camp for young teens surfaces online. The video shows armed officers in uniform screaming at youth and taunting them on the playground. Most kids appear to be early teenagers, but at least one child appears to be at least 6 years old. As of June 2017, Officer Alejandro Nava is still listed on LAPD's website as the contact person for the LAPD's JIP.
In 2012, Officer Elmer Alex Peraza, a former Marine, is accused by his ex-wife of domestic abuse and assault with a firearm. Peraza and his ex-wife have been married for 8.5 years before their divorce. In the last 3 years of their marriage, Peraza's ex-wife reports that she was verbally abused, hit, choked, strangled, and beaten, and that her elderly mother and sister were also the targets of abuse.
2013, officers Nichols and Valenzuela are relieved of their duties but remain employed as they are investigated for the sexual assaults of 4 women over 5 years. Many of the assaults occurred while the officers were on duty, armed, and in uniform. Some took place inside a police vehicle.
Okay, in 2013, Officer Miguel Angel Shiprapitra is found guilty of luring his neighbor's 2 children, aged 5 and 8, into his bedroom, where he has committed a lewd act on the younger girl and attempted a lewd act on her sister. Shiprapitra is sentenced to 3 years in jail and resigns from the LAPD.
2013, a 27-year-old woman is sent to hospital after officers David Shin and Jin Oh placed her in handcuffs, put her in the back of their vehicle, then drove her around while one officer sexually assaulted her as the other drove the car. The assault victim was awarded $3.5 million for damages, but the officers were never charged.
2014, Officer Daniel Han Chun is arrested for battery of a young teenage relative who is left with welts and bruises on his shoulders and back after being hit by Chun repeatedly. Chun stated that the beating was due to misbehavior and poor grades. Chun pled guilty to battery. He's placed on leave with the LAPD and never serves any time in jail.
In 2014, LAPD detective of sexual assault crimes Dennis Durr is found dead in his car after committing suicide. 2 adult relatives of Durr's had recently accused him of sexual abuse that occurred when they were teenagers. In one case, the abuse was sustained for numerous years.
In 2014, following an endorsement of Peraza by Chief Charlie Beck, LAPD's Internal Affairs cancels the Board of Rights termination hearing against him for the physical abuse of his ex-wife, her mother, and her sister. The LAPD instead promotes Peraza's ex-wife, who is also an LAPD officer, and gives Peraza a 5-day suspension.
2014, LAPD Detective Michael Brambles is arrested for a series of robberies, 2 rapes, and assault with a deadly weapon. One of the robberies involves a 16-year-old girl whom Brambles robbed of her school backpack at gunpoint. Brambles is sentenced to 102 years in jail, like a backpack, too. Jesus.
In 2015, an October Cadet Youth Service officer, Montes de Ochoa, is investigated for sending lewd messages and photos to a 16-year-old recruit. De Ochoa is sent home with pay, then arrested 10 months later and charged with the distribution of harmful matter to a juvenile, destroying evidence, and child annoyance, or abnormal sexual interest of a minor. It is not clear what discipline or sentencing he receives.
2015, the Officer of the Inspector General releases a review of the bias policing complaints made and investigated from 2012 to 2014. The data reveals that of 269 alleged domestic violence complaints, 86 were sustained. Compared to the 1997 investigation, the rate at which domestic violence is being reported against officers has more than doubled.
2017, LAPD officer Clifford Proctor is charged with domestic violence and misdemeanor battery against 2 women in Orange County.
In 2017, in June, Officer Robert Kane is accused with statutory rape of a 15-year-old cadet stationed at the 77th Street Division. On July 20th, Kane is charged with sexual assault.
Thank you. So, first of all, I just want to acknowledge Tiffany Guerra for her research on behalf of the Stop LAPD Crime Coalition, Black Lives Matter, and LACAN. So, when we 2 weeks ago came out with this thing, there's a person from the Police Protective League, from the police union as well. Both the Police Protective League and the LAPD issued a statement, making a mockery of what we are saying. And saying to the extent, and I'm just paraphrasing, that those who live in these glass houses shouldn't be throwing stones. Well, whose glass house are we talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, this is as rotten as it gets. This is not, as we always say, what happened with Robert Kane is not a moment in time, but a continuation of history. And this one doesn't even include when that off-duty officer who lives in Orange County whipped out a whole and pistol whipped these young people who were coming home from their school. That just happened 4 or 5 months ago. So this is what we are talking about when we say that the whole damn system is guilty as hell. This is not one act. This is not 2 acts. This is not just something that happens maybe. This is going on for the last 43 years. So nobody is saying here that don't support the youth. But this department is not capable. It's a violent department. They cannot have. We have youth right here who are speaking about it. Let the youth run those programs. That's where the money should be going. We live in a city that invests less than, so I'm not going to speak on your behalf, Vanessa. Would you like to share some of this thing? What is going on and how much money in criminal justice is going?
Yeah, so over the past 10 years, the LAPD's budget has increased by over, I believe it's $700 billion, and we only expect it to continue increasing. And more than half of the budget allocated for the city, it's about 53%, is going towards law enforcement, going towards the overcriminalizing of our communities when young people across Los Angeles are calling for that money to come back to where it rightfully deserves to go, which is to our communities, to young people, to all people, to fund things like housing, like medical care, like youth centers, spaces that are open and safe for us to go, not run by law enforcement.
All of you in this room, look to be inspected one day. We are going to read about Hamid shortly. We are going to hear about whisper campaigns about some of us. So when you challenge corruption, you become a target. So when the time comes, and it will, because they don't know anything else. They don't understand anything else.
Only violence.
Control and suppression. They will figure out a way to control and suppress us. Our being here every Tuesday makes it a little difficult, because there's some white folks in the room too, which we appreciate y'all being here, quite frankly. But we know that I am going to read shortly about Hamid. There's something there, and if it ain't, we'll make something.
Critical thinking.
I'm going to read about you. Tiffany, how dare you do this research? How dare you spend your time compiling all this information? How dare you do that? How dare you raise these points? How dare you point a finger at the corruption and call for the firing of Beck? How dare you do that? We need law and order in LA. We are run over with gangs. That's why 53% of our budget goes to the police. Because this city is full of gangs on every corner, every time you look around. And somebody has to control them gangs. Because good, decent people on the north and in the west need to be protected. And so their job is to make sure, and they get whatever they want, to make sure that gang members, you ever heard Beck's report? He talks about gang violence, he talks about he never substantiates it. He just references it. He talks about it, but he never supports it. It's not a resource, it's a reference. But if you can use it and scare people, then you can get more money. Then you can weaponize drones. Then you can get almost, $400,000 for a failed cadet program. Because they are protecting us against the gangs. And who are these gangs, by the way?
People.
Yes, they're black youth, they're brown youth, they're youth, period. But,
That's right.
but they are protecting us against the gangs. And when we come back and they make the argument for the drones, and you hear Beck's report, you will see how they are protecting us and making sure that the city is safe. Protect and serve. You should put under that control and suppress.
You have less than 1 minute to clear the room.
Relatives, I want to acknowledge our power and that when we transition in our power, in our safety, on our terms, that we do that collectively. We've held this space in our power. The state is very afraid of truth, and we walk in truth. So always stay that walk in truth. Thank you for sharing truths that need to be spoken. Thank you for lifting up the names of so many folks. Acknowledge those folks. That was a lot of violence historically that was just read. Take care of our bodies. Take care of ourselves. That sexual violence permeates all our families and communities. The problem is they have the badge to enforce it and use guns in that too.